All right, it's time for class. Let us get to our draft. Let us get to okay. Welcome one and all. We're gonna get started shortly. The Winsdad, lawful evening. Welcome. Let us alert. Over so. Welcome. We're about to get started shortly. Just bring up our constitutional draft. Sasha Gay, lawful evening. Welcome everybody. We're gonna get started shortly. Greetings, Kim. Lawful. Welcome. We are about to get started shortly. Today, we're going to be implementing suggestions into the draft. And like we said before, we are, it should be obvious by now, but we'll be implementing unbiased suggestions into the draft, and then we're going to start sharpening up the language. We're going to start changing around a few things. We're going to start refining, consolidating certain things, and making sure that if it can be shortened, it is shortened, and if it needs more plain language is added. right? So we're gonna continue to make our edits in this session, and once we get through the edits, then we're gonna talk about the next stage. All right. So and for those who are unfamiliar, the constitutional draft is a new constitution we are crafting. A matter of fact, it is the first constitution of Jamaica, because the current one that we're using is not necessarily a constitution. It is a framework that was put in place so that when England decided to withdraw its governmental authority, the country would not fall into ruin or go into chaos. Options. Good evening, lawful, welcome. So the current constitutional draft that we're drafting is the first constitution actually that is going to be written by the people, with the suggestions of the people, and also with the guidance of the people and what the people actually want in the constitution. Not something that is passed down from government and then tell you, oh yes, you know, we have the constitution, let me hear your suggestions and let us hear your contentions, but yet still they don't want the regular man and woman to put in anything in the constitution. They don't want to take anything out. They don't want anyone to actually have a say in what goes in their constitutional thing. So over here, so are the people going to make the suggestion and make the additions, the removals, the modifications, etc. And that is what makes this different from what you may have heard before when you hear about constitutional reform. We're not reforming nothing. We don't want government to start nothing. We want we the people to start something like this and integrate and infuse what the people want into this constitution. Ashan only 21, lawful, welcome, good evening. Mato says, will it protect citizens and will it be taught and upheld? Yes, and yes. That is the absolute point of creating something like this. It is first to protect we the people. Second, it is to ensure that we actually learn our true history. What we have been taught is a fabricated history, and I can prove it not only with documentation but also with common sense where everybody can understand, right? A lot of the things that we have been taught is only because we have not had access to the information. And the fairy tale story that we've been taught about the so-called heroes and the many different aspects of what our past looked like, we will quickly see that it was a fabrication. It was just something that sounds good so that people will stop questioning what really happened back in the day. But, you know, that is for a later time. For right now, we need strong footing, right? Yeah, Malto, as we go along, you know, like I said, anyone who wants the input, you make your suggestions here on the live, you type them in the comments box, or you can come up and we can talk through a few things. But first, the one thing I ask is that if we're going to take suggestions, please go on voiceofjamaica.com, click on new constitution and download a copy, so that when you're making suggestions, you're speaking from a knowing. It is not from, oh, me think say this would be good. I mean, that's fine, you know, but some of the things that people might think they want to come up with, it is probably already in the constitutional draft itself. So, you know, if you want to come up with more creative ideas and more things that you think needs to be addressed, then yes, absolutely. All suggestions are welcome. Zine. So, lawful greetings. Welcome, welcome. So, we are about to get the ball rolling. Welcome, everybody. Today is going to be another fun-filled session. And I am certain we're going to see the agents start reporting the live again. So, stay tuned. You know, every time. And for those who are new, King Kong, lawful, welcome. For those who are new, you see, anytime the agents them report the live and I see violations coming up, that is when I start to unveil certain information. Because it makes no sense you try to suppress something like this. Investment, lawful, good evening and welcome. Damien, lawful greetings, welcome. Aymara, lawful greetings, welcome, welcome again. So anytime suppression tries to rear its ugly head, I am going to be dropping some more gems and more gems so that you can better fear for yourself out there. You can better comprehend certain things, and you can also use, if you so choose, the opinions that I lay here. Because like I said before, I am not a lawyer, I am not an attorney. I am not providing legal advice, and I don't provide consultations. I don't sell anything over here. Sabak, lawful greetings. Welcome, welcome. We don't sell anything over here. Right? If we are going to be a nation and a people, and we're going to be an effective force within society, we cannot always be thinking about the next dollar. Right? Honey Sapir B, lawful, welcome, welcome. So, with that being said, it is time for us to begin the next phase of our constitutional draft. So, we have now completed the base draft, and we are going to continue. Lawful and joyful with gratitude as the attitude. Yeah, man, big up yourself. Lawful, King Ben, Pentagon. Lawful, welcome. So, we're going to continue our constitutional draft, and we're going to start integrating the suggestions that have been made over the past, I think, 2 weeks. We've had some suggestions coming in. The form on the website was giving some issues. So, if you still want to make suggestions through the site, you would use the contact us form, and you should be able to make suggestions there as well. But other than that, we're going to proceed with our draft. Give me 1 second. Why this is here? Yeah. All right. So we're gonna make this smaller so that we can fit it on our screen. And we're gonna get started. So let us cut the music and let us begin some work. Zine. So today we are no longer in PDF form. We are in Microsoft Word. All right. And we're also going to be traversing back and forth from the website and start integration. So today is April 4th, 2026, 4/4/2026. And this is our first integration session. So let us start from the beginning. So this is voiceofjamaica.com. Right? And when you get here, the first post that is on the website, if you scroll down, it will say New Constitution. You click on that. And from here, you have the Word version of the draft, and you have the PDF version of the draft. So if you want to see exactly what we have so far, what is in it, and so forth, you can check out both versions, right? Under this submission section here, we have the suggestions that have been made so far. So this is what we're going to start implementing now. Right? So our first suggestion is to integrate one, the right to bear arms and to defend oneself using equal or greater force. Right? So let us bring up our draft. So this is a part of, this is Article 1, I believe. No, this is the Bill of Rights. Okay. So to start things off, right, we have the title page, we have the preamble, and these we're going to refine later. And then we have the Declaration of Independence of We the Free People, right? And then we have our Bill of Rights. I know this may sound a little bit strange to some people, but don't worry yourself. When you read them, you'll see the reason why these specific sections are added. We do not want separate documents where people have to go looking here and looking there to find anything, right? So we are having one single document that encompasses all laws, all recognized rights, all protections, etc., etc. Especially also all violations and all penalties. We are not leaving anything out. Anything that protects the people, where someone doesn't have to make an arbitrary decision, that is what we're putting in there. We're putting teeth back into the Constitution, or rather, we're putting it in the Constitution, right? So, under the Bill of Rights, we have protection of privacy, protection of rights, and here we have the very last one, Section 15, the right to bear arms, including guns and defensive weapons, right? So, these are what are called enumerated rights, meaning rights that are written down and currently recognized by the Constitution. So that way, we don't have to come and say, well, I have this right and I have that right. It is already recognized in the Constitution, right? So, the right to bear arms, including guns and defensive weapons. The people have the right to acquire, meaning you can go out there and get it. Use, we all know what use means, right? You take it up and you can use it for some purpose. You can hold it, meaning you can keep it in your possession, keep it in your property, keep it in your house. You can transfer it, right? The legal right for one person to have it or the other. Or you can store it. You can put it in a one box, lock it up, put it somewhere, right? In any way deeming fit. Any defensive weapon for one's own protection or protection of one's home and property, right? So this is the basic use of a defensive weapon. Life is not appropriate for some reason, for some regions. Why? So it look like say the agents them out early. Agents are out early. So, anyways, so this first part of the right is explaining why, for what purpose this right is for, right? We cannot have a defenseless nation. It does not make sense. If we are asking for protection, we must first be able to protect ourselves. Right? So if we're going to enumerate a right, we have to put in there all the protections that we can get up front as a people before we start talking about government. Laverne, Lawful, greetings, welcome, welcome. Politicians, them are pray out the thing and I try thief ideas. Well, hey, listen, sometimes we need to be motivation for others, you know. You see it? So if it can bring good, then go right ahead. right? But we don't have anything to hide, right? All right. So the first part is talking about its true purpose, to allow the people to have the right to acquire any defensive weapon for their own protection or the protection of one's home and property, right? So anything where you have, you're supposed to can protect it. You're not supposed to call and wait for protection to come. That is ridiculous. Innovation and creation of new items used as defensive weapons shall encompass this definition and shall not be converted in definition to mean an offensive weapon. What does that mean? Right now, somebody can get locked up for having a knife on them. Somebody can get locked up for having a knife in their car. Somebody can get locked up for having a machete. How can these things be deemed to be offensive weapon if you are not going after somebody intentionally? It don't make sense. It don't make sense, because if you need, you never have to need it. You just buy the knife or you just buy the machete. And if police catch you with it, they are going to tell you, say, well, it is an offensive weapon because of the Offensive Weapons Act. It don't make no sense. And here's the other thing. If it is considered an offensive weapon, why are they selling it? Why are they allowing businesses to sell these things? It don't make no sense. Anything that you are being locked up for or anything that you are being charged for, if you can acquire it in the country, that means that it is the individual who is selling the item. They are the ones who are ultimately responsible if there are charges to be brought, because you are conducting yourself in a lawful way. You go into a store, you use your own money and you go and buy the thing. And if you go out there and you go and purchase something with your own money, which is your own energy you expend, and it gets converted into money, and you are using your own energy, your honest living, to go and purchase something, how can that now be deemed unlawful? That don't make no sense. On no planet that don't make no sense. So here we have that protection. A defensive weapon cannot be converted in definition to mean an offensive weapon. Right? This basic tenet of life shall be forever inviolable. What does that mean? It means you cannot change the law to make this a crime. Somebody defending themselves or acquiring a defensive weapon can never be converted into a crime. It doesn't matter how bad society gets. Everybody always supposed to have the option of defending themselves or acquiring items to defend themselves if the case comes to be. And never the basis nor justification for presumption of intent to commit a crime, nor basis for a criminal charge without sufficient evidence to prove criminal elements. What does this mean? This means just because somebody have what you consider to be a weapon, that cannot be anything to presume say somebody is out to go commit a crime. Because the amount of people who have machete and knife and arms and different things in their possession right now, just because you have a license, that does not make it any better. It does not change the item. Unless you go out there and literally go and commit a crime, you should not be held accountable for just having something in your possession. So if me want to buy one knife for my kitchen, I have to smuggle it go home after me done take my own money and go buy it? People tell me, that does that make sense? If me buy one machete because I want to use it for chop out my yard every so often, chop one jelly every so often, chop down couple tree, me have to hide it for go home after me use my lawful money and buy it? Who came up with this thing? And the worst part is, no matter how people complain, it's almost like a beg parliament if you have little sense sometime. But you see, because money depend it, Justin, lawful, evening. You see, because them can charge you and you go to court and then take a money off of you. Why would somebody stop if they found a way to make money and people won't complain? Why would they stop? So, if someone is benefiting from an activity, obviously they will protect the activity so that they can continue to make money off of it. That is all I can say there. Because otherwise it don't make no sense. Don't make no sense. So, this is right number 15. Right? The right to arms. Any kind of arms. Mato says, but it could be regulated, such as a taxi operator during duty cannot have one. I guess that can be a subjective thing, right? Because if someone is robbing the bus, or if someone is assaulting someone in the bus, or someone is doing something that endangers life, what do you suggest that bus driver or that taxi operator do in that moment? You see, it is not a bad idea, but I am just saying you have to think about certain other things, because one of the things in this constitution is that any public transportation system, right? Whether it be taxi, whether it be bus, whether it be Juta, whatever, they would need to have cameras installed in these commercial vehicles, right? So, it would be clear if someone is being provoked, if someone is being harassed, if someone is being violated, right? So, if in fact someone is justified to use a machete and chop a man, you have to see the circumstances, you have to hear the events that are taking place at the time. So I would not suggest that we disarm anybody. Because again, what I would regulate is making sure that we have cameras. So any incident that happen, a law enforcement can go and they can pull the footage and they can upload it to the National Information Database. It's that simple. It's that simple. And everybody would know that that information is available. Everybody would know that camera is there, right? Right, if you go for taxi driver, it will have to go across the board. Exactly. Exactly. We don't want to disarm the public in any way. The public should be armed at all times, because that is people's major complaint, right? They are unarmed, and if somebody is even slightly armed, if somebody even have a knife, they can get away with a lot, right? We don't want that. We cannot disarm our population and then talk about protection, because we cannot, and we would not want police on every corner. Exactly. If somebody knows, say, just like you said, well, if everyone feels equal, knowing the opponent is equally armed, it would not be such threatening, right? That's exactly true. If we have an armed population, you don't have nobody a run around and say them I got thief nothing. No, people would actually feel good to say, what? A thief, you're a thief? No, man, me I go stop you. You not get away from this situation. But you see, if somebody is armed and everybody else is disarmed, a thief can get away easily. Because nobody no want get harmed, nobody no want dead. Exactly. All right. So, there we have the first suggestion, right? The right to bear arms so that we can all be protected, not just law enforcement and not just the criminals, right? Number 2, no natural plant can be deemed illegal. Okay, so I, for one, am in agreement with this. But again, as we go along, we're going to vote on some of these things, right? Because for the past, I guess I said the past 400 to 500 years, the amount of countries we try to ban the herb and try to ban certain things, it's not normal. It's not normal. And there are studies that have come out now that state that it doesn't matter what you do with the herb. I want to know what I talk about. It doesn't matter how you consume it. It does not cause any adverse effect. It does not cause any adverse health effects. Obviously, it can get you in a different state. So, you wouldn't want to be traveling and consuming a large amount of it, right? So, that is where I would draw the line. It should not be that someone it should not be that someone is now considered a criminal just because you grow a plant and you use the plant, right? But in the interest of public safety, I would say you cannot use that item while traveling, because we know say some people had gone after them puff that thing there. But if you're using it in your own private space, your own private home, which is already happening, just owning it or just holding it or having a large amount of it should have nothing to do with no government or nobody else. That is your business. It grows naturally and you don't have to sit down in no lab or do anything. So, I would vote that something like that should stay out of, I guess you can say, law and crime and violence. So this is 16. There, no natural plant should be deemed illegal. Okay, can be deemed. Well, yeah, we can put it so. Right to all natural plants right. So let us center this. No person shall be held to have committed a crime by virtue of growing, consuming, holding, selling, buying, or any other activity as it relates to any plant, whether alive, dried, or otherwise. Simple. Right? Out of public use one. A hammer is as dangerous as a machete. Exactly. And all persons that got locked up should be released because government regulated it and now selling it. Right. Now, any person who have been incarcerated for plant-related crimes that did not constitute a crime, constitute criminal elements at the time of being charged, shall be released immediately. So what does this mean? This means that if we make this into law, where we have the right to all natural plants, right? Because how can we make nature into a crime? It's like converting your own livelihood into a crime. Your own experience with nature was converted into a crime, right? So what we're saying here is this. If someone did not commit an actual crime where they harm someone or harm the public or harm some property or something, if you did not actually have something in between where criminal elements were involved, then those people need to be released right away. If you detect the plant and you cause some harm in some way, or it was actually deemed to be a crime other than just it being a plant, then we cannot reverse something like that, right? We're not going to release actual criminals on the road. But if simply because you had the herb or a plant and it was used to say this is the reason why you were being incarcerated, no, you have to be released. You have to be released. Right? And restored dignity. And dignity can mean many things. Number one, a public apology for such crimes, because locking up somebody without an actual crime is a crime. Putting the law in motion where the law was not supposed to be used is a crime, because you have now set the law in motion with an intent where it was not supposed to be. You basically put a monkey wrench in the law and you have corrupted it. Right? But we're not going to get to that section just yet. Right? So the dignity would encompass compensation, right? So public apology and restoration, restored dignity. Hopefully something will also be in there to open cheese. Come on. You see you? Only you would have opened something like that, you know. Oh gosh. Right to all natural plants. With a S, no person shall be held to commit a crime by virtue of growing any other as it relates to any natural plant, whether alive, dried, or otherwise. All right, so we're good to go there. So that's suggestion number 2. Number 3, paternity fraud is unlawful. Oh God, man. Oh God, man. So there are so many men. We cannot say women in this case. Boy, ladies, that one year go beat some people bad. You know, say, even last year I was looking at the statistics and the amount of jacket with Jamaica. The amount of jackets in a Jamaica. And Jamaica don't have winter. You have to wonder, say, if I saw everybody are run loose. From the married to the committed to the loose ones them. It is like commonplace for people just try any little thing. Sometimes them never get no benefit from the other side. It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And the fact that the government have these statistics and they do nothing with it, you have to wonder if it is a profitable endeavor or something. And it actually is, because if a woman decides that he's going to take a man to the courts, and I covered this before, the woman in many cases can force the man to pay for the child even though the child is not his. Especially if them living in the same household and the man are trying to get rid of the woman. It is crazy. And I am a firm believer that if you're a father, you own up to your thing. If you are not, you should be set free, and it should be a crime. It should be a crime for someone to force upon someone else the responsibilities of a parent when in fact that individual is not the responsible adult. Right? So here we have family law, right? Family law, recognition of marriage, equality, registration, dissolution, rights of children, protection of children, custody and care, family dispute resolution, protection of family privacy, responsibility of the state. All right. Responsibility of the state. This is where the courts are going to come in. See? So, we are going to add a few things here. All right. So, the state shall support families through education, welfare systems, and protection services. Now, this protection services is what we're going to extend, right? So, we're going to go to number 3. Children have a right to their biological family heritage. Any person who deprives a child of their rightful family lineage or bloodline commits a crime. Right? Here we're going to solve this now. Paternity shall be completed at birth before a birth certificate is issued or a birth record is created. Because we all know on our side of the world, it is the man's name that is transferred onto the birth certificate. And in today's day and age, it is not actually used for lineage, it is actually used as a benefit. So that in case something needs to happen, them can hunt down the man. Right? So if we have paternity from birth, we're not supposed to have no problem. Because right then and there, we shall figure out who are the father. Because we don't need to figure out the mother. Right? We don't need to figure out the mother. Right? So the paternity at birth should fix that issue going forward. Right? Any woman who gives, let's say, who defrauds a man by any trick or scheme forcing such man to have raised a child beyond 30 days. So you have 30 days to come forth. Commits a crime. Right? So, beyond 30 days of the appointed day of this constitution. There we go. All right, let's say them are gonna say it's sexist. So make we fix that. Given that a woman cannot reasonably be considered to not be the mother of a child, the following relates only to women. Simple. Simple. Is a woman alone can give jacket, right? That's it. A man cannot give jacket. Software passion. The sensible ones will get. Hey, listen. We have to learn to move on the go. See? So it is in plain language. When I use no legalese. Plain and simple. So here we now extend the protection services, right? So remember, the state is not interfering with family life. Right? The state is not going to actively go out there and go search and see who is a jacket and who is not. But we have to protect children because really and truly, as much as people will not get along, it is the children who are going to suffer in the end. Right? Because if you have a man who do a hit and run, and then no one pick the end up, can't find the man, don't know who it is, or whatever the case may be, are the people going to suffer? Because when the man were in the picture find out, you think he going to stay? The man going to cut himself loose. So, we have to protect the children's rights, right? No pitney at all beg for come here. So, we have to ensure that we protect the innocent. We have to protect the innocent. Right? All right. We're going to add one more thing. As the case may be, if a man and woman, we're not going to say marriage because not everybody are going to end up in that situation. As the case may be, if a man and woman who is in a relationship or marriage become irreconcilable and must part ways, parenting time shall be split 50-50 or if agreed to some other percentage by the parties. If no agreement, a tribunal shall determine the best interests of the child. Very simple. And of course, we're going to list the best interest elements and the best interest test so that the child can benefit. You know, in some cases, one parent may be unstable. And let us put this as well. No parent shall have, we're not going to use the legalese, shall have inherent right to 100% custody unless it is proven by evidence that one parent is unfit or severely unstable, unable to care for and or provide for the child. All right? Since we're on the topic, as the case may be, no party, no man or woman shall pay, no man or woman, if deemed to be required to support his or her child, shall be required to pay more than 20% of his or her earnings in support of the child or children. Right? So let us head to the comments. All man shall be equal. Yes, that is already in the preamble. No, I don't think we put that in there. All man shall be equal. We have to be specific with that one because all men are not equal. We neither man nor woman are equal. Somebody always have something over the other. Whether it be knowledge, whether it be physical strength, whether it be fast, something. We are not equal. We can't say equal as it relates to the law of equality, right? When it comes to public matters and matters of fairness. But we can't say all men are created equal. So what about the sex of the child? A man can have more right to the son than... All right, you see... We're not going to tackle that right now. Remote Tour says, so what about the sex of the child? A man can have more right to the son and the woman more right to the daughter. We don't want to create that situation because, again, not everybody is mentally stable. Some people are unfit to be carrying out parental duties in some cases. So we have to be careful when we're crafting these laws to say a man will have more right to the son and a woman have more right to the daughter, because really and truly, when we actually look at the statistics, if a woman is if a woman is absent in a household, right, the man actually raise the pitney them better because of standards and because of stability in routine. A man does not change all the time. When it comes to routine, a man is better able to create a schedule, to create predictability, to put down him foot on certain terms. Whereas a woman, she will think that she's being strict enough, but it is not the same. It is not the same parenting. And if a woman is not, again, I'm only talking about research material. I am not talking in general. This is based on research. If the woman is not in the home, the children, if the man have to raise the pitney them come out better. Generally speaking, I'm not saying that is the case for everybody. So please just take it into consideration. I'm just talking in terms of research. If a woman raises children, in most cases, the children become delinquent. They have anger issues. They have depression issues because, women are ruled by emotions in most cases. So the women are always going to make emotional decisions in many cases. Not everybody. Let me say this again. Not everybody. But in the case of raising children by yourself, it is more than likely the case than not that children raised by a woman, they are lacking in several areas when it comes to cognitive decision making. So we don't want to give any inherent right to any parent to have more rights than one to the other, because it really depends on the situation and how that parent was brought up. Right? So any child born on the island should be registered, regardless of parents' nationality. Yeah, man. Citizenship, that section on citizenship covers that, where any child born on the island is a Jamaican and is registered as such. Right? Yeah. All right. So there we have the protection. We have paternity protection. We have jacket protection. We have parenting time protection. We have parenting split protection. We have protection from inherent custody rights. So anyways, when I get that. And we have the earning protection. So a lot of times, we have cases where a court will order a man to pay a certain amount. And when the man don't pay, him not have nothing for himself. We have that protection as well. You can't pay more than 20% of what you make. Complete access to the sex offenders registry. That's a good one. That's a good one. We don't have that in here. So that would be under crimes. Right? So crimes would be all the way down. Anti-corruption and public accountability. Let me see if we can find crimes, disaster response, working conditions. Criminal code. Let me see. All right, so here we have the criminal code. Hold on, where that gone? Criminal code, yes, sir. All right. So, burden of proof, intent, self-defense, liability, crimes against person, assault, sexual crimes, okay? Is a crime. Consent must be clear, voluntary, blah, blah, blah. Kidnapping. All right, so here we're going to add there shall be a sex offenders registry. All right, so let's bring this down some more. 1. This registry shall be public. Very simple. All right. What else we got? The age of consent should be 18. It is already stated here. So we have consent must be with a person older than 17, so 18 and up. So we already have that one. We know a lot of that walking around in families like them untouchable. Exactly. Still gonna because nobody wants to shame the family. Yeah, that is out the window. That is out the window. Once we have someone convicted of any of these things, we should have a registry that is made public. Plain and simple. All right? All right, let's see what else was suggested here. So paternity fraud is unlawful. We add that already. Make polygamy lawful. Man them and woman them, because I'm a man alone. Since we have so much infidelity, why not make it legal? If you want to have more than one man or more than one woman, just stick to that. Just stick to your household. Right? We're not supposed to be confined. You see? The things that are, because at this point it appears to be natural. We can't stick to one partner. Right? So, if it is the case that people have such difficulty sticking to one partner, get 2 or 3 and everybody live in a one big house. Everybody stay in a one relationship. Right? So that way, you still have your diversity where you look for. So, I could go back up to family. Family and marriage. Should I look on them there before we come out of that section there? Let's go back. All right, so here we go. Family, marriage, and children, right? Purpose of family law, recognition of marriage. Terms of marriage and responsibility. All right. So, cohabit, we need to add this cohabitation of more than 3 years shall be deemed, well, matter of fact, let us set it at 2. Shall be deemed to be a family unit between 2 or more deemed to be a family unit. Because you know, boy, them still a report alive. Either way, we're not going to say parties, you know. Cohabitation of more than 2 years shall be deemed to be a family unit. We're going to specify things now. Between consenting man and woman. Marriage is a lawful union between consenting man and woman. Marriage shall be entered into freely without coercion. The terms and responsibilities of marriage shall be clearly defined and recorded. Now, people might not realize what this means. Yes, if it's some of us, we want to protect ourselves from vampires. Some people only go into relationships where them can get. So, before you get into a marriage, if you are going to marry, you will have the option of signing a prenup to protect your assets before marriage. Anything will go on in the marriage, you're out of luck there, so. But what you own before you go in, you're supposed to be able to retain all of those assets. That should not be up for debate. Zin? Exactly. When I want them take this thing out of context, so between man and woman. Zin? Alright, cohabitation of 2 or more years shall be deemed to be a family unit. Notice we did not say it will be deemed to be marriage, because a family unit is something where you have a stable situation, we'll call it, where 2 people are living together or cohabitating for more than 2 years, right? Matter of fact, let me put this. Intimate cohabitation of more than 2 years in the same home shall be deemed to be a family unit. Very specific. Right? Alright. It shall be lawful, as the case may be, for a man to have more than one partner living in the home to form a family unit. Again, this is all about family. This has nothing to do with people who want to just go out there, go have fun. This is about family building. It shall be lawful, as the case may be, for a woman to have more than one partner living in the home to form a family unit. It shall, when I read my mind, it shall not be lawful for the same sex to be married or cohabitate without the opposite sex in the home. I make we just say it for what it is. Simple. Homosexuality shall be unlawful. Case closed. If you want to go do that, you find somewhere where have it lawful, right? You don't have to be here practicing that, but you can start a family unit here under that premise. Oh gosh, people let me say put it in all caps. All right, uppercase. All right. Well, the pedophilia thing was covered under sex crimes. So yes, we did put that in. Let's see what else we have. Free water for every household with the exception of paying a yearly service fee. All right, so we're done with the family section. Let me see. All right, so we're good right there, so all right. So now public service. All right, so here we have continuity of essential functions, right? Public services. So here we're going to extend that. These functions shall operate under the authority of this Constitution. So Now we might have to move this around at some point, but we're going to define it here. Water distribution shall be free of cost. Water wasting shall be a crime. I know this sounds strange to some people, but there are people out there who are sometimes wasting water and leave the pipe on, water run a full and a overflow in a den tank, all of these different scenarios where we need to be responsible, right? So if we don't have a shut off, we don't have a lock off somewhere to stop the water from wasting, then sometimes we have droughts, right? We have long periods of time, sometimes in the summer, where no rain not fall and no water not run. So we need offense and crime are the same thing. So either way. Or we can, that kind of extreme still, you can say, shall be punishable by a fine. Right? Because we don't want to imprison people because of something like that. But we want to discourage it. So there is a fine. Right? And again, we can have auditors go around, look and see, check the yard them and so forth to ensure that if any kind of disruption is going on with the water service where people are left them pipe on, people are farm pooling in them backyard unnecessarily, right? Them take pictures. We don't want to hear nobody say nothing. We don't want nobody to write down. We want pictures. We want video. We want evidence. We have, I think everyone can agree that we cannot trust the word of anyone. We cannot trust the word only of anyone. So if we're going to have someone being charged with a fine or so forth, we need evidence. We cannot take somebody's word for it because somebody can just badmine you for no reason at all. Your yard might look nice. Them are, how come him have that? Where they get money from to buy this? Oh, them live over here, so we don't want that. So we're going to separate the feelings from evidence. If we're going to be charging people or anything like that, it needs to be something that is substantial, right? You come with the evidence, we see what is going on, and then we can institute fines and adjust the thing that way, right? So yeah, get that out of the way. Let's see what other suggestions we have here. We have all parishes should have a general hospital. Which parish don't have a hospital? Can we get a some more clarity on that? Because to my knowledge, I think all parishes have a hospital already. All right, let us move on to the next one. So we have a polygamy. Link up there, so man must be a part of their children's life once paternity is confirmed. Yes, that is already established. Convicted criminals are indebted to their victim or to the victim's family. Now, this is something that was covered earlier, where we're going to abolish the prison system, right? So no more prisons. If someone is convicted of a crime, we the people have to determine the penalty. So some of the more serious ones, like unaliving and them something there, it is towards the end part we're going to talk about what should we do with such people who are intentionally going out there taking people 3 points, right? But as far as all of the other criminal acts go, they are already indebted to the public. So they have to do public service, something productive within society. We not lock up people no more. That don't make no sense. Don't make no sense. An indigenous chief, male or female, should be the head of state. So this is a little controversial, and everybody in I guess you can say the tribal mindset. Now, if we already have tribes and other local governments that are, secluded, then, they can continue having their head of their little government or their little organization, whatever they have going on. But, at this level, I don't think we can have an indigenous chief per se at this stage. So we can't implement that one. For the head of state, now remember we say we're going to have the parish command and the national command. We are not going to have a single head of state. We're not going to have a single one somebody we can stand up and talk for we. We're going to have something similar to a tribunal, right? Where we have the national command, and we would choose the three people who would be the tiebreakers of decision making on an international level, on a national level, and so forth. So, we're going to get rid of this one so-called head of state situation. Ratify the UN DRIP and the ADRIP to make those declarations binding law. All right, so these I'm going to review. I think these are talking about indigenous peoples. I'm going to have to review them first before I suggest that we incorporate some of these things. I don't want to make suggestions that I'm not fully aware of. But if this is in fact related to indigenous peoples who have been recognized in their tribal state, I don't think there should be a problem, but I am going to review them first before I suggest them to be added and be voted on, because all of these things that we are adding, each section, we're going to have the public vote on these things, right? So yeah, once I review them, then we're going to take a look at that. All right, back to the comments. We have for pedophilia, castration. Interesting penalty. Certainly justified. Certainly justified. Let us go back to our draft. And let's go back to sex crime. What did we have? Offenders registry. All right. So, kidnapping, what do we have? Did we have it defined up here? Nope. All right. So we did not define here non-consensual. Any non-consensual sexual contact is a crime. All right. So down here we're gonna put penalty. Penalties. All right. I'm gonna make this center. 1. Pedophilia crimes shall result in a penalty, in a mandatory penalty of castration. Oh, that's supposed to be an idea. Okay. Any more suggestions on this topic? Make them for farm food under security. Yeah, whatever we deem necessary that needs to be done in the public, we're definitely gonna have the courts determine where in society they need to fulfill certain obligations. All right, what do you think about free electricity for each household? That was the suggestion, the question from investment. So we talked about that in one of the earlier sessions. Those are public initiatives that would be voted on later on, right? Where we would have projects, we would have proposals that are made by the public or really any native, right? And these projects, we would have the proposal and then a vote on it. And once we see how we can implement certain projects, for example, the solar project, where I'm saying, everyone should have solar. We should not have this long electricity line running all over the place and charging us exorbitant fees. And then on top of charging us, right, it is our tax money that is used to build the electric grid. And then when the electric grid goes down, we, the same ones, are maintaining that grid with our tax dollars. And then we are still paying the fee to use electricity. It don't make any sense. We are being taxed three ways: left, right, and center, back and front. So I think everyone should have a solar system and a battery system, right? Basic solar and battery system. And like I said, if we were supposed to collect even $10 a month from everybody, we have 2.7 million people, right? 2.7 million people. If we had $10 from everybody, we can supply our entire country with solar probably within a year. But that is something that has to be voted on. Everybody have to come together and, voice their opinion and their agreement or their disagreement, and it becomes a project, right? All right, so that we cannot mandate in the Constitution because things and times change. We don't want to change the Constitution because of a technological change. All right, so having a kind should result in a death penalty. So the unaliving penalty, that is something, like I said, we have to discuss at the very last part of this for serious crimes, right? Where we don't want certain individuals to continue within our society causing corruption. So that is something that will be added at the very last part. We should have renewable energy unit. We should have proper storage units for agricultural produce. Okay, so Ashan only 21 say we should have proper storage units for agricultural produce. What do you mean? You mean for storing things? Okay, so this is something that we brought up. I brought up as an idea earlier. I was saying we should stop over farming. We should stop over reaping, right? What we should have is something like an app or some kind of registry, some kind of list where you have your ID number and you put in what you want for that week, right? What kind of produce you want, what kind of poultry, what kind of meat, what kind of how much fish you want, etc. Right? And we do supply and demand directly to people. We can't keep on having all of these imported things, right? If we have a local supply chain where people simply go, they pay and they get what it is that they added to their grocery list for the week. So instead of people have to go to market, and sometimes the market people them not sell off everything for the week. The amount of things that them have to dash away, if a tomato, onion, whatever them have to dash away, it is because of over farming and overproducing. So instead of doing that, we don't need to be storing. What we need to do is start creating avenues where local farmers can supply people with what they need. And if you can't supply people, you can know ahead of time, right? We can facilitate and get farming and local production going on a bigger and a better scale rather than us trying to store things and then later on we are dash away and a waste food or a waste produce, right? Same thing with fishing, same thing with, meats and all of those things. We can do it on a needed basis and stop trying to store things. Okay, any part of your body that you should be cut off. All right, leave the country. Leave the country. All right. Right. And the Bible said that to tell them go fight that and then nature. Age of consent. Let us go back here. So age of consent should be 18. Yeah, we talked about that already. Customs need to go to. No, we cannot get rid of customs. The reason we cannot let us clarify that. Customs should only be dealing with trade and commerce. Right now, customs is dealing with everything personal, trade and commerce. And that is our problem. The people, generally speaking, should not be charged a tax just for livelihood, just for purchasing items as required for everyday living. But that is what Parliament has implemented and enforcing, and that is unlawful. Even in the Customs Act, nowhere in there does it say that an individual that is not purchasing items for any kind of commercial use should be charged any kind of customs tax or customs fee. Right? So customs should still be there, but it should only be doing its purpose as it relates to international trade and commerce. When we talk about businesses doing things to make a profit, that's what customs is supposed to be charging for, not for somebody buying 1 and 2 or even 5 things. It is for businesses. Storage units for emergency. Oh, that's what I mean, just in case a lockdown occurs. Oh, for storing seeds. Well, those are somewhat of a private thing. Right? How would we mandate something like that? Are you talking about having like a some facility to store seeds in case of? I think that would have to be like a project. That wouldn't be something that we can mandate per se, because then we would have to have a rotating schedule of crops, because we can't freeze seed, right? We need a general hospital for all parishes. Like I said, if you have a specific parish that doesn't have a hospital, we can bring that up in when we talk about making proposals. But at the same time, we cannot mandate something that is already there. Right? All right. So let us move on to the next one. So here we have another email. The right to healthcare in a timely manner. Right? I think we add that already. Let me see. Healthcare system. Healthcare shall operate for the full benefit. Right to healthcare. Person right to healthcare. No person shall be denied structure, public healthcare services, private healthcare, standards of care, emergency care, public health protection, disease protection, medical records, health workforce, availability of medicine, health information system, accountability. All right, so public health to be funded through public revenue, accessible, structure, right to healthcare. Every person has a right. Every person has the right to access basic healthcare services in a reasonable time once requested on arrival. Right? Reasonable time on the same day. We have to be careful about putting time frames on these things. Right? So if you reach there, you're supposed to have access to basic health care on the same day once you request it on arrival. Right? All right, let's see what else we have here. Yes, if you have problems submitting suggestions, use the contact us page. There is a contact page where you can submit the suggestions on there. Social media should be banned to children under 16. So that is an issue, right? Because a lot of times parents are setting up applications and things for children. So how would we enforce something like that? That is, that is a big question. It is not like the government is creating a social media presence. So it's not something we can regulate as a people nor as a government. So if we're going to restrict something like that, that has to be a parental decision. We can suggest it, but there's no way to enforce something like that. Because if the parents can just take the phone and sign in and put in whatever, we don't know who is accessing what. Right? We don't want to restrict private life in any way. People need to have for them own rules and regulation as how them handle things. Social, okay. What is the penalty for parliamentarians who pass law that is in violation of our inalienable rights? So, in the new constitution, Parliament cannot pass any law. The only thing a cabinet or the command, the parish command and the national command would be able to do would be to handle international matters, and they would not be able to sign any agreement until the people themselves actually vote on it to consent to any kind of deal, agreement, or otherwise. So Parliament would be stripped of their power to put anything into law. And the only law of the land would be the Constitution. So they would not have the power to change anything. They would just represent the people on an international basis. Right to free water. Yes, we just covered that a little bit earlier. So water would be free. Let's see, if a woman is and get pregnant, she should be allowed to not take that child into the world. Absolutely. Yeah, so that would be a separate section. How would we? That would be under crimes. Registry. That would be under crimes. So under here, so that's penalty. So here we would have right of victims. Right. One, women who become pregnant as a result of the offered opportunity to dispose of the pregnancy without penalty. So that would cover that. Well, the birth control, you know, well, that wouldn't go into this section, right? But you see, when we talk about rights, which is probably something we should put up here, so. We have rights, right? So 17. Women specific rights. One, women shall have the right Single woman shall have the right to birth control, preventative options, all right. So single woman shall have the right to birth control preventative options. The reason we put single women here is because if you are in a relationship or you live together with someone in a home, again, we cannot dictate family life, right? For whatever reason, you may want to also be able to exercise that right. But for somebody out there who does not have someone at home or a partner, right? We want to ensure that this cannot be outlawed, right? Matter of fact, let's take out the single business out of it. If the woman don't want to be pregnant, then she have that option. However, but we couldn't even enforce anything beyond that either way because a woman can take pill and the man no know. So, anyways, the man that shoot blank. Let's see. All hospitals should be at the operating level instead of having a A, B, C, or lower level. Yeah, we covered that before. Highest level. We talk about cleanliness and cameras and those kinds of things. Those are local policy, local policies that we would implement. That would not be something that we actually put in here, right? But we already have a standard of care when it comes to the hospitals in the Constitution. Let's go back down here. So. All right. So we have standards of care. So here we have under standards of care, healthcare providers must maintain safety, cleanliness, professional competence. You know, harm caused by negligence shall be subject to law, right? Meaning you can get sued, right? We talk about private hospitals. They need to operate transparently, emergency care, healthcare protection. So the state shall act to prevent disease, contamination, public health threats, right? Measures must be lawful, necessary, and proportionate. So we already listed, the level of quality that is required for any kind of hospital or health system. Education should be free of cost up to the tertiary level. We could put an age limit on it eventually, right? So I think we did add that. Let's see. Education. Was on the rights. Education system shall include training, technology, science. That was the general. All right, so here's the article on education. All right. So this is currently what is in the constitutional framework that we are currently calling constitution. All right, so we put every child has a right to free primary and secondary education. Right? So again, we can say up to high school, free up to high school. We can say, because at the end of the day, schooling, schooling is this is another full topic we would have to discuss, because when we talk about schooling, we have the government paying the schools to operate, and then the schools are begging the parents for all sorts of money, right? So the question now becomes, where are all these extra funds going, right? They say, oh, this is for that program, this is for this program. The government is supposed to be facilitating these schools. These are not private schools. The high schools are not private. They are funded with government money. So that is also tax dollars. So the question here is, where does it stop? All of these schools that were built with public money should not be charging a fee, right? So we can say every child has a right to free education up to high school. For now, we can say, all right, at least up to high school, you have free education. We can't leave it at the primary level. Because once people leave, the children leave primary school, what are they going to do at that age and with that basic level of intelligence? It's not enough. You need at least high school to be free. When they're done with high school, you have all sorts of different things in high school where they start at that basic level. We have, woodworking, you have metalworks, you have cooking, you have sewing, you have a lot of little trade where people can somewhat start out life with. You practice a craft and you can do something. You can't start with primary school. It don't make sense. So free education up to primary school for now, until more research is done where we can figure out if the state can actually fund a college education as a basic educational requirement for everybody, right? What else we got? Domestic violence should be treated with the same penalties for both genders. Okay. Yeah, we have not set any penalties for that just yet. As far as domestic violence is concerned, that is just something that has to go in front of a tribunal, and then the courts will determine, the penalties for that. And again, the penalties, if we're going to eliminate the prison system, right? For example, if somebody live at St. Mary and them commit a crime and it is punishable, right? And a punishment is imposed, you would not make that criminal go serve them time in a St. Mary. You just send them all to St. Elizabeth, right? If we need to put an ankle monitors on them, something upon them, very simple. You can't run away. And a matter of fact, if you try to escape, your penalty would be double. So if you either get 1 year, you get 2. If you either get 5 years, no, you get 10. You get the idea, right? So we impose certain incentives that if you decide to do unscrupulous things, all you do, you just work it off indefinitely. Nobody now sit down and look and be bored. You're going to work all the day of your life until you pay off your debt. Right? So, in many cases where we have these violations of law, people are going to be working it off either way. I think that should be a family discussion. I don't know what that was in reference to. All right. So we have rural roads should be a priority in order for the farmers to get out their goods to the markets. Right. So that is something that I think we talk about infrastructure the last 2 times. Right. Yeah, specifically we talked about the rural communities. Right, we're saying that infrastructure development should be a priority. Right, so that's something that would be voted on when the constitution go into effect on the most pressing matters that the country need to address immediately. Right. So let us see what else we got. Another suggestions. All members of local government must live in the area they represent. Right? I don't think we put that in there. Command. Parish command. Proposals. Let's see. Implementation of decisions. The parish command. Parish commanders, here we go. Parish commanders shall serve, must act in accordance. So each parish shall elect 1 parish commander, right? Just like we have a mayor now. You know, we'd have a representative as a parish commander. Parish commanders are responsible for maintaining public order, administering parish resources, representing parish interests at the national level. Parish commanders shall serve as the primary representatives of their parish in national matters. Parish commanders must act in accordance with the Constitution and may be removed by public vote within their parish. Right? So, I mean, well, let us specify it. Parish commanders must reside in the parish they represent. Right? So you can't live out of parish. Housing should be provided for governmental parish commanders. I mean, that is debatable, you know. Do we want to provide housing? I think that, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you should already have housing. Right? If housing is needed, you know, that is something that can be suggested and voted on by the people of that parish. But I don't think something like that should be mandatory. Like, you know, we don't want to bring over the colonial structure over here. Just because you're a parish commander, that don't mean that you are above anyone. You're just at a representative level, right? So we don't want to put anyone on a pedestal. So wherever you live, you're not get an upgrade just because you're a parish commander, right? If you need something in relation to your job that is different, like clothes, you know, uniform and so forth, fine. But to give them a house, I don't think we should get to that level of support per se. I mean, that's just my thing, but I think that is something that has to be voted on. I don't think that's something that should be mandatory in the Constitution. And these things that I don't add, we're going to have votes on them later on. As a country, we analyze our children education and ability to get our best to support our country. I'm not sure what that means. We analyze our children education and ability to, oh, you're saying, do we analyze our children's education and ability to get our best to support our country? Again, that would be something that we would discuss as projects, right? So how would we implement a good education system? How would we implement, you know, how effective our education system is? What is the education supposed to be teaching the children to prepare them for adult life, right? What exactly are we doing? That is something, again, that I don't know how we could embed that in the Constitution just yet, you know. But for now, I think that is a project level kind of deliberation. I want to get PS right. The citizens should be landowners instead of landholders. Absolutely. I think this was covered already under was it land ownership? Let's see. Land forces, national emergency. Land use. Purpose of land regional ownership. Okay, so we don't have a specific section. I think we do. We do have a land section. I think it's called land registry. Yep, National Land Registry, right? So if you already have a piece of land, all we need to do is create a system that tracks the ownership. We should not be paying for land, and we should not be doing anything with land other than if it is commercial, that is different, right? That has to be regulated. But as a people, as a native, we should be entitled to a one piece of land for a family, right? We don't need 10 acres and a mule. Basic living space should be enough, right? So where did we put this? Proof of title, transfer of property, disputes over land, protection of ownership, public use of land, boundaries, land use. Land use must be in accordance with the zoning and environment protection. Use that causes harm to others or the land is prohibited. Unused land. So, all right, let us put a provision in here. It says natives are entitled to one acre or less of habitable land to start a family or for agriculture or for personal or for family agriculture. So if you have a capture piece of land, so to speak, you can't just do a big land grab and later try to sell it. It is only for habitation and private use. If it is needed, was just my comment because someone would feel too entitled about the commanders. Okay. Yeah, the commanders, again, we're not raising any public servant above regular people. Right now, just because they might have suit and tie and police now bother them feel like say them bigger than everybody. That should not be the case. No investors from outside our country have ownership or rights to our natural resources. I think we did cover that previously. Public finance, anti-corruption, disaster. So use of resources. Let's see. Right, so we do have a section here for protection of national resources. Right, natural resources of Jamaica, including land, minerals, forests, and water, shall not be exploited by foreign entities without public disclosure, clear contractual terms, and approved by the people where impact is significant. Right. Ownership of critical resources shall remain with the people of Jamaica. So ownership cannot be transferred outside of Jamaica or to any party outside of Jamaica. Investors shall give back 50% of their profits to the country. I think that's a little bit extreme to say investors shall give back 50% of their profits to the country, because if someone is risking their funds on a project, we cannot dictate private terms, right? Because if we say that about corporations or institutions, we have to say that about private people as well. So we have to kind of be careful there regarding giving back, right? We can charge a tax. We can charge a tax or a fee, or what do you call it? A tariff on, any kind of exploration or mining and those kind of things, controlled mining or controlled resource gathering, but we cannot impose profit sharing with a corporation as a government. I think that would not sit well as a government. The investors should not take their own people, take their own people in the country to manage over our natives. I think that was already covered. Own people in the country. Oh, you mean like managers and I think we can say where the talent already exists in Jamaica, right? Again, we have to be careful about foreign business regulation. If foreign business operation in Jamaica must, right, shall not receive privileges exceeding those of local businesses if the talent exists in Jamaica. Those jobs requiring such labor must first go to local professionals rather than foreign workers. All right, so that way we employ local first. If workers are allowed from overseas, they should not be paid more than our natives. Right? I mean, that falls under the equal we can also put it here as well. Wages for work must be equal for the same type of job, unless skill and experience varies. So there are, this covered under the labor laws, but, under foreign interests, foreign businesses, here it is also specified. Wages for work must be equal for the same type of job unless skill and experience varies. Obviously, if someone has more experience, you can't enforce that. You always gotta have a disparity with experience. No person trying to acquire land should falsify their intentions, meaning stating it is for farm. Well, either way, they still have to register it. So if someone falsifies land purpose and they are caught, that is a crime. Yeah, that is already covered. Citizens should receive a small percentage from the revenues annually. Now, again, that would be a policy decision that we vote on, right? A project. So we talked about this before, where we're saying if we have a surplus in our consolidated fund, then we can offer incentive programs where if people are contributing to their communities, right, at the end of the year, right before Christmas time, people can have an incentive deposited to their accounts, for meeting the yearly hourly threshold of how much contribution you make to your society throughout the year, right? So that is something that is an if question. It's not something that we can mandate per se, because we don't know what the future is going to hold. Did we talk about taxation? Yes, we did. There's a section on taxation. All countries that require our native a visa to enter should be required visa to visit. Oh, la, la. Well, that is a touchy topic, because remember, there are some countries that are more powerful. Their dollar is more stronger than ours, so they have more leverage, right? So we have to be careful about that. We don't want to cause difficulties for people already out there. The visa requirements are because of the things being signed without our knowledge, right? So agreements and treaties being signed without the knowledge of the people, so the people don't get to know what's going on and what they should agree to or what they shouldn't, right? So now that we are taking the mantle on this thing, we can renegotiate all of those things, bringing it back to the people to make decisions and not just blanket accepting any and everything. So that is something that, again, we don't really mandate that in here until maybe later on, when we renegotiate international relations. We can now say, okay, we put everybody on notice. This is what it's going to be going forward, right? So, it would be no different from other countries that, for example, there are countries out there who say, listen, regardless of what visa, of what passport you have, you need a visa. Even US citizens require a visa for some countries. So it is not something strange. It's just that, like I said, we have to put out some kind of notice and some kind of negotiations going before we jump and do something like that. No external entities should interfere with our natural resources. It should also be protected. Right. We did cover that just now. Right. Our national resources, when we talk about, certain things that are being done to the island, those things are going to be up for review. But it has to be on a case-by-case basis. We cannot say just resources. It all depends on the purpose. It all depends on, whether or not it's harming the environment, and what can be done. All right, let's see, Damien want to come up. All right. Let's see. What else we got? I have another suggestion. Wondering if we can take out the whole thing of TRN, where one has to have a TRN to do any and every day-to-day transaction or business, like getting money that was sent from overseas. If we take away the TRN, this is not a good use case. We have to we have to figure something out regarding identification, right? If we're going to replace something like the TRN, we would have to come up with some other identifying number. But really and truly, the TRN itself is the TRN itself is not being used properly, because the meaning of a TRN is a tax registration number. We should not be registering for taxes. Taxes are for commercial purposes. So individual people are not supposed to be using a TRN anyways, unless you are going to be doing business. You're going to be, doing some form of taxable activity. So technically, we should just get rid of it for that purpose, right? If you want to do business, you go and get a business registration number, and that is how you identify as a business owner. But as a private individual, we should not be identifying ourselves in that way. If me say I'm me, I may have my passport. I'm not supposed to need nothing else. If me want to have an ID, have a picture ID separate from the passport. Because I know everybody want a drive around or walk around with them passport, right? So we can use a picture ID, right? We say, okay, fine. It is a state ID, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, we should not be having no tax identification number, because we are not corporations. Well, for those of you who have not made a declaration, you already considered that, and that is the reason why it is being used. So anyways, we can get rid of that once we educate the populace, right? But for just to get rid of it for the purpose of everyday transaction, we have to be clear on what we're talking about, right? So that one we can't really implement just like that. We're gonna have to use that as a voting and policy measure. Please make a provision for private trust. Yes, we can be more specific, because if something is not listed in the Constitution, right, it is technically allowed, right? So if it is not listed as being regulated or forbidden, then it is allowed. So we already have a national registry. If it is not prohibited, then it is allowed. So if you have a trust that you need to register, it is no different than anything else. You go to one of the national registry offices and you simply file your notices or file your certification of trust, your declaration of trust, your notice of this, your declaration of that. It shouldn't matter, trust or not, right? So last one, we have Jamaica police need to be held accountable for abusing the citizens of Jamaica. We need more lawyers to take up the defense of our people. So we already covered that. The public officials no longer have immunity, right? And if they commit crimes or if they violate rights, they are tried in the same way a citizen would be tried, under the same laws that govern us. So we don't have to worry about that last one. All right. So we have now covered all of the suggestions that were made so far on voiceofjamaica.com. So we are going to doing business with entities. They don't prevent you because you're not using government process. Right. So we have now implemented most of what was suggested thus far, and we're going to continue our refining process on Monday. We're going to start sharpening the language. We're going to start combining sections or combining different areas that may be overlapping. We're also going to be ensuring that we keep adding things that are suggested if it is not already included in our draft. We're going to continue to expand and create the relevant sections or the relevant pieces that may be missing as we go through the constitutional draft. So this draft, let me save it. This draft is going to be available within the next few minutes of the live, and we're going to continue on Monday to draft additional sections, to polish it up, and also start creating the table of contents. We're also going to start integrating some other bodies of law into the framework. I think we're going to do that first before we start with the table of contents, because the table of contents is going to be based on the pages and where things are located. So we're going to be implementing much of that. And once we're done looking at some of the other bodies of law and things that we can implement into our own constitution, then we're going to finalize with, table of contents, declarations, polishing up the preamble, and some other final stage aspects that will come once we get to the final stages, like, certain punishment, for certain acts and so forth, that is going to come at the very end. And it is not going to be very long because, it's going to encompass, very specific acts that people may commit. And again, if we're going to rid ourselves of corruption from society, we have to, as a people, take a firm stance on ensuring that we completely rid ourselves of the corruption and not foster it. Just like you have weeds in the garden, you don't just cut off the top. You burn it out or you root it out. Plain and simple. See? So that is it for this evening. Thank you for joining the live. Again, I know it is extensive, especially for those who are not used to the reading, but we are going to get through this together, and we're making history. Let's just put it that way. We're making history, and I am glad that everybody is a part of this. We're going to be extending the document out to everyone. We're going to make sure that when this thing is implemented, it is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. When it is implemented, we will be fully protected. And this is we're not inciting hostility, and we are not inciting anyone to challenge anything. This has nothing to do with challenging or overthrowing or nothing like that. All right? This is completely separate from what is already in force and effect. So, all records kept on blockchain for transparency and accountability purposes. We're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about that in depth, but we're not gonna use the blockchain for our record keeping because the blockchain itself is owned by other entities. So we don't want any of our data to be owned or accessed through any other medium or by any other government. Right? So we're not going to be using blockchain for our record keeping. If any kind of blockchain we're going to be using, it's going to be a private encrypted system that has multi-layer, a 3-layer system, one that is archival, one that is live, and one that is read-only. So the archival system, is going to have its own layers and its own protection. So that gets a copy of everything live. Then we have our live system where only certain individuals will have access to write or create data. And we have a read-only system that is completely separate from everything else, that is accessible to everyone. That is called the public record system. So if you are accessing the public record system, even if you so-called hack it, it has nothing to do with our permanent records or our internal national records database. So that is how we separate and protect our data from corruption, from hacking, and all these different things. So, from the technology side, we wouldn't have to worry about record keeping, right? Because we're gonna truly segment and separate all of the systems so that if one system get affected for whatever reason, it doesn't do anything, because we're going to have redundancy, right? So that is it for today. We're going to continue on Monday, and we're going to make other strides towards the completion of this draft. So by the end of this month, hopefully, we should be complete with all of the stages necessary to begin the next phase of this draft. All right? So big up on yourself. Have yourself a great night, and we will continue on Monday. Lawful, always.